Friends, it's the custom of many, and it's done so here, and Justice Shore has been saying this Mishnah, this teaching from the Talmud, after each of the daily prayers, followed by Kaddish. And this particular chapter has been chosen because the last four Mishnahs, the last four teachings, if we isolate the first letter of each of these four Mishnahs, it spells the word neshama, soul, and that's on whose behalf the Kaddish is being said. So let's study the last Mishnah very briefly. I can just find it here. There you go. Okay. That's the Kaddish. We get the Mishnahs at the end.
The Mishnah is at the end here.
Well, they have
We'll
it
go
here.
to 470.
Oh, no, I have it.
It,
Okay.
475.
So the tractate that is studied is Mikvaos, which deals with the mikvah, the laws of purity, because the soul is undergoing a process of purification now. The final Mishnah reads as follows. This requires extensive background which we will not share due to time constraints, but I'll just say this. When the temple stood in Jerusalem, and God willing, the temple is rebuilt without delay, the following laws will apply again. The laws of purity and impurity. Objects, food, drink, people can become ritually impure if they are touched by certain defiling agents. The way they attain purity involves, depending on the nature of the impurity, the different degrees of impurity. What's common to all processes of purification is to immerse the object in a mikveh. It is now therefore pure. Whilst it's impure, if one handles or uses it, it would prevent the person from entering the temple or eating sacrificial food. That was really the bottom line. Purity meant, or impure meant, that during that time of impurity, one did not visit the holy temple, sometimes for a period of a shiva, 7 days to work through death, because death is one of the most severe forms of impurity. So during the time of impurity, one does not enter the temple or eat sacrificial food. And people who lived near the temple, discovered this recently, in many homes around the temple had their own mikvahs in their homes for themselves and the pilgrims who would use their mikvahs in order to be able to enter the temple precinct. So the Mishnah deals with objects that become ritually impure, and the person wants to use them and then without hindrance enter the temple or bring an offering and so on. So the Mishnah deals with first a very large object, a bed. The problem is, how does one get a bed? Yes, a bed can become ritually impure if someone impure sits or lies on it, and which is fine. But if you want to lie on this bed and then go directly the next morning to the temple, then you'd have to purify the bed. The problem is, how does one get the bed into the mikveh? Because the mikveh is a small mikveh and the bed is large. So the Mishnah says as follows. If one immerses the bed, so the ground of this particular mikveh is soft earth. So he takes the bed and he presses it into the earth so that the water covers the entire surface. The Mishnah said that's perfectly fine, even though it's not covered, touched by water at one time in totality, because the water did touch the legs. That's now pure. The bed is placed into the mikveh floor, the water covers the top of the bed, the entire bed is now ritually pure and renders no problem. Now we speak about a mikveh that has the right amount of water, which is the minimum of 40 which covers the average person, but it's too shallow. If you lie in it, it's not going to cover you. What do? So the Mishnah says, you raise the water level by putting into the mikveh bundles of reeds or wood, so that it's porous. You haven't divided the body of water, but it raises the water level, and the mikveh is now fitting for immersion. And the final teaching. Machat, a small needle. He's afraid if he immerses the needle in the mikveh, he'll lose it. So how is the needle to be purified? So machat shinisuna marles hamayri puts, this is a mikveh which is a kind of a cave. You lead down to the mikveh, the actual immersion area, with a series of steps. He puts the needle on the top step. He makes a to and fro motion with the water. As long as he doesn't separate the water from the body of the mikveh, Kivin sha'av Allah hagal, as soon as the wave passes over the needle, tahira, it is pure. That's how the chapter ends, and it's at this point in a moment you're going to say Kaddish. I just want to share spiritual insight into the meaning of this final law. It's by divine providence. The final teaching talks about a needle and purifying the needle. What does this all mean spiritually? The needle represents the soul that comes down to the world. Why? What's the function of a needle? It is to stitch two things that are separate or disparate. How does the needle do so? The needle has a sharp point at one end, a little hole at the other, to which a string is attached. It pierces the cloth, or the two cloths, and then strings them together, binds them together through the agency of the thread. Explains Chassidut, the Alter Rebbe, our Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe's Yotzeit is today. That represents the soul. Our task it is to connect heaven and earth. That's why the soul comes down here. Tikkun Olam, to reveal God's presence on earth. Spirituality and physicality naturally are disparate, irreconcilable. And yet this is the power of the soul and the Torah to fuse the two and make them one seamless expression of God. How do we do that? The tip of the needle is very sharp and pointed. It conveys two messages. This must be done through humility, the hallmark of your mother. The point in mathematics is the most enigmatic of. It's not a line. It's there, but it doesn't take up space. It's almost a theoretical concept, the point. So we're here, but we are transparent. Agencies only of the divine. Personal agendas aside, ego, we're here to serve. That's the point of the needle. And this we pierce through the veil of concealment that characterizes our unrefined world. The word olam means world, it means to conceal. Lahalim means to hide. It also means olam, forever. One word has three meanings. World, conceal, forever. The world conceals the eternal one, the forever one. It's our job to reveal God in creation. Humility, focus, pierce through the facade, see the potential of godly within. The other end of the needle is the thread, representing the tzitzit, the thread of Torah mitzvot. Mitzvah by mitzvah, we thread the world, we connect the world, people to people, man to man, and man to God. That's our mission in life. Nobody's perfect, and after life there's a need for a purification. But the Rebbe says this final mission is talking about our generation. Our generation, our souls, having witnessed and experienced what we have, directly or indirectly, there's no need after death, after 120 years, to go through a thorough cleansing process. We have come through as a people with flying colors. We still believe in God after Auschwitz. And not just believe, Judaism is blossoming. And your mother, this Ani Mamin, again and again have to witness to indescribable horror and injustice. And yet still, Ani Mamin. So here, the needle, the soul, just at the top of the mikveh. And the wave passes over. Just a moment of cleansing is all that's required after her sojourn on earth. And Tahora, she's a pure, radiant soul. And remains the vessel of blessing, the channel of blessing for her wonderful children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And continues to work from on high. She said she would. She's just passing over this passage. And she'll continue to work there for her animamin, for our collective animamin, for the perfect world, heaven on earth, souls drawn back into perfected bodies, forever in eternal joy and celebration. Amen. Amen. You face that way. Amen.
The whole basis allow his man carry the Amen. יהי נבוא פון שלמה רבה. הנה ניתם רבים בחי, הריקים בני ליטהי פורקנמי קדם ובהון וישמעיה ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהי שלמה רבה וישמעיה. בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום אמר, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
אמן. שקויה.
Yeah.
Students of Mikhaim.